Hey, buddy. I think you can be in this session while you run your session. I actually haven't tried doing that. Typically, when I'm running mine, I get out of the rest of them. But like, I guess technically, yeah, why not? You excited for yours, man? Anybody else in here? Am I talking to myself? Because that'd be really weird. Wouldn't be the first time today, but it'd be weird. Oh no, we've got Alexandra. Good to see you again, Ronnie. What's up, Ronnie? Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Kirsten. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, all my friends. I love it. Absolutely love it, y'all. I'm assuming I would just kick this off in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to wait for some folks to join and the other session to end. If anybody's in that other session room, wouldn't mind telling me when they bow out. That'd be helpful. If not, that's no problem too. Oh, Mark Sullivan in the house. We got some folks jumping in. What's up? What's up, Mark? Oh, I'm assuming that other session must have ended or is just ending now. Folks are starting to pile in. Once y'all get here and we get a decent group of folks in here, I'll kick this off. In the meantime, I'm gonna just sit here really awkwardly and kind of talk to myself, unless somebody talks to me in the chat, which would be cool. Also, oh, the recruiting animal show went long. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Kellerman's awesome. People like listening to him. I can't blame them. Who else we got here? Rachel, thanks for jumping. What's up, Trevor? I still owe you a show. I suck. I'm really sorry. I suck a lot. I promise I'll jump on that. Carol, hey, how are you? What's up, Trev? Oh, Schnookums, you're here. That's so nice. Thanks for coming in and supporting me. I appreciate that a ton. Give it another 2 minutes. See how we do with folks coming in here. F them if they're late. Yeah. That's normally like my philosophy. Hey, Heather. Hey, Peter. What's up? Allison Davis in the house. How are we all doing? This is going to be interactive. So, just jump on the train of starting to chat right now. Because if not, this is going to be a really weird presentation. So I can go back through that again if y'all didn't hear me there. Carol, how are you doing today? Hey, Peter. Hey, Allison. Faith, what up? Michael, you love the topic of blind recruiting, or you love the topic of me constantly calling people out and making them interact with me? Oh, okay, good. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, well, then you're in the right place. You're in the right place. One more minute, and I'll get rocking and rolling on this, guys. Fair warning. So there's a networking session after this. I'm more than likely going to go over the 35 minutes allotted to me, because that's I guess just kind of like what I do, and this is going to be no different than that. So I'll do my best, but just wanted to let you guys know ahead of time. We've got about 30 seconds, and I'm going to jump on in. Oh, that's amazing, MGB, about the Clubhouse chat. Hopefully this will help add some fuel to your fire here. I mean, if we're in agreement on it. If we're not in agreement on it, then it's going to be really, really awkward for a little bit here, which is fine. I'm used to that. We actually just started up the Recruiting Daily Clubhouse. Our first one is next week. So if anybody's on Clubhouse and wants to jump on, Recruiting Daily Clubhouse is next week. And just like that, I am going to kick this doobie off here. So, guys, thank you. Welcome. My information's right there. Tell me if this slide is big enough for you to see. I'm keeping my face up just so y'all can see me in the corner, that I'm not walking around like a crazy person. Thank y'all. All right, guys. So blind hiring. This is blind hiring 2.0, not 1.0, not the blind hiring that everybody's thinking about when they talk about blind hiring. This is actually removing interview bias. So a little bit about me. If you don't know me, this is me. I'm a founder at Wayne Technologies. This is my really awesome team. We are sourcing subject matter experts. I love speaking at conferences. I love giving back to the community. It's actually a thing I enjoy. I also like being the center of attention. So this works out really well for me. Speaking of being the center of attention, I am an indoor cycling instructor because I get to be the center of attention, yell at people, tell them what to do, and listen to the music of my choice. It's basically what I was built to do as a human. I love pushing myself in the boundaries of what I think I am capable of or is capable of for me. So back in 2017, I ran the New York Marathon. In 2018, I did a half Ironman. If you've ever seen me in person, you would look and go, oh, you don't look like a runner. Yeah, I know. I get it. I know what I look like. But I like pushing the boundaries as to what people think is possible. And yeah, for Clubhouse invites, as I'm seeing it on there, I have like 9 invites. If anybody wants any, just let me know. So pushing the boundaries is kind of what we're going to focus on today in this world of blind hiring. I do love GIFs and memes. There are none in here, believe it or not. My first presentation I've done without GIFs or memes. I'm a dog lover. These are my 2 puppies, Blue and Honey. They're my babies. They're objectively cute. And they also make up the 5th message that I send out in my email sequence. And I'm married to a totally kick-ass woman named Crystal. That's her. She's, I think she's the coolest person I've ever met, which is why I married her. And last, I believe in the concept of being flawsome, which is like, we're all totally messed up, but we're also all awesome. And it's finding that balance of accepting our flaws and embracing kind of the awesomeness that sits between those. So that's me. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to go through the purpose of an interview quick. We're going to go over culture. We're going to go over video interviews. It's going to be a really quick slide just talking about why video interviews suck. We're going to talk about unconscious bias, the tactical unconscious bias that exists, not just like this idea of unconscious bias. We're going to talk about blind hiring 2.0. We're going to go over the common pushbacks and how to implement. So guys, if I'm going too quickly, please say something. I will slow down. If you have questions, please interrupt me, because if you don't, and we get to the end, we're probably not going to have enough time. So stop me, interrupt me. I'm checking the chat as we're doing this. Here we go. What is the purpose of an interview? This sounds really silly, right? Because it's like, oh, we want to hire somebody. I would say on a different level, it's actually providing a solution to a business problem. That's what we're doing, right? The business problem is lack of human capital to do X, or lack of brain power to do X, or lack of whatever it is. But the reason to hire somebody is to solve a business problem. That's why we interview people. The 2 things we focus on this, or can focus on with interviewing, is tactical. This is what most people focus on. I want you to understand the difference here. People who interview for a tactical addition to their team are looking for somebody else to help walk in the same path alongside their peers to complete a task. So if you have 10 treadmills, right, or 10 pieces of a puzzle that need to be put together, they're all going to walk and help them put the next piece of the puzzle down. So you get multiple hands all contributing in the same direction. That's a tactical add. That is a 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Right? The more people you add, it's another component of force. The other way to look at this, though, is synergy. Synergy is the idea of having multiple people aimed at the same goal who may or may not be coming at it from different directions. So that same theory of trying to build a puzzle as opposed to 10 people helping put the next piece in place and building up that manpower. How about if people were different enough that they were able to put pieces together from different angles and perspectives, building that puzzle a little faster? Synergy is the concept of 1 + 1 = 3. Right? And that sounds really weird. I know the math doesn't work on this, but I believe the formal definition that people use is that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Right? This is, I show the picture of my wife because this is how I feel about my wife, and our marriage is like, I feel like the two of us collectively are each a powerful one, but when we get the two of us together, we're a 3. We're not 2 anymore because of the synergistic relationship. And I think that that's going to be an important piece behind blind hirings. Are you hiring for a person to sit their ass in a seat and do the same job as the person sitting next to them? Or are you looking to hire somebody who's going to sit in the seat and collectively make the entire group, company, team, whatever, more productive, adding more than just their one piece of value? Yeah, John, exactly. But it's filling the gaps, and then filling the gaps. So filling the gaps is definitely a big piece. I think the other piece, though, is how can you add a component that makes the other people better at what they're doing also? So that brings us to what was discussed earlier. If you were in this talk about culture fit versus culture add, I did a bunch of research on this, and I'm sharing where most of my research came from. But it's a really interesting concept, and I wasn't able to really well articulate it until I read a study that kind of showed this chart between the difference of culture fit versus a culture add, and that's add, not ADD. How do you assess these capability gaps? Brian, great question, man. Also good to see you. So if you're looking for culture fit, this is typically the landscape, right? The company goal winds up being preserving the community. So Brian, it kind of talks to that point for you about how do you assess the capabilities. I think it's beyond just capabilities of the team, right? Because if you're building a piece of software and you've got a backend engineer, you've got a great API engineer, you've got a great database engineer, like you probably need to hire a front-end engineer. That's what you're lacking, right? But I think it's different when you're looking at what's the purpose of the hire. So a culture fit is you're looking to preserve the community, and there's value in that. I'm not saying that that's a bad choice, but understand that hiring for culture fit means you're preserving the current community mindset, hive mind that you have on the team. The focus of hiring a culture fit is hiring for the present. I want someone who can come in, who's going to meld with the team. Things are going to go really well. We can just hit the ground running. Hit the ground running is a culture fit statement because you need someone who can come in and assimilate really easily, right? What are they actually going to build on? They're building on what they currently have, right? It's the same idea of preserving the community. You're building on the core structure that already exists. And the hiring paradigm is confirming that they're a fit. Do we confirm that this person is going to easily hit the ground, that they're going to get along socially, that it's something that won't cause ripples in the waves? Culture add, however, the company goal is actually creating change. So you're not hiring somebody to further the current situation, the current community. You're hiring someone with the intent of changing that community a little bit. And the focus isn't on today. It's not on, hey, we got to do this, hit the ground running, get this started, right? The focus is on where are we going to be? What do we need to get us to where we want to be? That quote always rings in my head, which is what got you where you are today will not get you to where you want to be tomorrow, right? How does hiring for culture fit diminish diversity in an organization? That's a great question. So the idea of hiring for culture fit, again, is looking for people who enhance the culture that you already have within the organization, right? I want to hire really nerdy people because I'm a nerd and I like hiring people I can geek out with. I like hiring people who are number centric, love spreadsheets, and love like debating about things. That's me personally. And if I hire a team full of those people, then that's what we are. Definitively, that's what we are. Versus hiring people who maybe challenge me a little bit or who round out my rough edges, right? Like Nikeo is really great at being able to kind of put my emotional perspective on things kind of into a box and being able to present it back to me like, hey, here's what's going on. Julie is super organized. So I hire people who who don't actually preserve my sense of community that I'm hiring because in the future, I want them to be able to do X and Y and Z. So you're basically building on the things that you're missing, but it's not just a skill set, right? It's not like a tactical, we need to build a bridge, we need an architect. It's more of what are the things that as a team, as a culture, as a bunch of personalities, as a bunch of brains that we could use that may be challenging, right? That's where that learning paradigm comes in. You're not trying to confirm whether a person's going to be a fit. You're trying to learn how they can join your team, learn from these folks, learn how your team is going to interact and how they're going to grow, and learn how the person you're adding is also going to grow from being in your culture, not just being a part of your culture. So we're getting into video calls. I've talked about this. It was on a different slide of mine that I've done in the past. I don't feel as though I need to harp on about why video calls are more draining than in-person or phone calls. If you don't believe me, there's a scientific journal article at that link that I may or may not be illegally sharing. There's a couple of quotes. You guys can read the screen. This is data. This is not my opinion on this. These are scientific studies. So this is a fact. Video interviews are way more draining, require way more focus, and ultimately, because of all of these things, wind up pulling the candidate's focus away from simply being a human and communicating with another human, right? And so VCMC, just for the record, this is from a scientific journal article on the bottom left here, stands for Verbal Communication Mediated Technology. It's basically what they're assigning for video interviews, so it's not just Zoom. And so they actually talk in this study about the massive effect that these video interviews are having way beyond the scope that we think they're actually having, right? These 4 things that we list right here, I'm like, yeah, those we can kind of make sense. It goes so much deeper than that. Check this out, guys. Look at that left-hand side. Look at all of the different issues that come about, and look at the percentage of the time that it's happening in that right-hand column. Establishing connections, 16%. Video disruptions, a fifth of the time is a video disruption. Forget even getting into the setting issues. Forget even getting into that bullshit, right? Look at how high those percentages are. Eye contact. We like doing video interview because we can see each other. Bullshit. 80% of the interviews are having issues with eye contact. Are you actually seeing each other? Because it seems a lot like, based on these studies, probably not the case. So keep this stuff in mind. It's way more than just Zoom fatigue. It's actually scientifically less effective. It's not doing the things in the nonverbal communication piece. It's not doing the things that people expect video interview to do. The reason they want to use video interview. It does not speed up the process. And Michael, you're going to hear, actually, I have a very radical approach to this. So we're gonna get into it. So bias, guys. Here's the deal. You're all biased. I am biased. I'm probably more biased than most people. I'm fairly judgy. I get it. I'm working on it. Pray for me. But we all have unconscious bias. And I know we hear that term all the time. And I know that it's like, well, we need unconscious bias training, and we need to get better about blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm not poo-pooing that. But I'm also saying that, like, regardless of all of the training in the world, we're going to have unconscious bias. It just happens. Peter, we're going to get to that. So what greatly affects bias? So I'll ask you guys, when you think of having an unconscious bias towards a candidate, what do you think of? What stage of the interview process? What things are you looking at? What are you seeing? Like, what does that actually look like for you guys? This is for all the attendees, by the way. I don't have like a group of people in my room that I'm asking. So go to your chat box and actually talk about what you're thinking of when you think of bias. Oh, I can wait. I've got all the time in the world. Specific experience. Michael, the question, what do you think of when you think of unconscious bias? What are the ways that we are biasing against people unconsciously? Or where in the interview process are we doing this? How they dress. Yeah, that's a great one. Past experiences. Great one. Specific company. Harder to read. How they present themselves. School and education. Gender. Yeah, that's all great, guys. Name. Nonverbal communication. Tanya, I'm just going to pull you up on stage. You can give the rest of this. Accents. Weight. Oh, gosh. Rachel, don't I know it? How long they stay. Yep. Bias at each step of the process. So energy level, Mark. Great one. So there's a few of these I'm going to I want you to be mindful of. Some of them aren't biased. Some of them are actually just like data points that we want to collect. Jim, I assume you mean a positive bias towards people who wear those. I think the specific company people are coming out of or past experiences isn't always a bias. I think that can be a data point. I think the same thing with what they're looking to do in their next role, for example, could be a data point. But it sounds to me, guys, like most of what people are kind of talking about here is either visual or most of it's on a resume, right? And Kimberly, I totally agree with you. There's bias in each step of the process. So here's an interesting fact for y'all. Did you know that we are visually way more impacted than we are auditorily? So let that register for a second. When you hear something, right, you hear someone describe what a dog looks like, or you look at a dog, you're going to remember the picture as you're seeing here, right? It's 6.5 times more. So where do you think the major bias is actually coming in? Because everything I hear is about, we need to remove the names from resumes and we need to, remove the profile photos and we need to remove the education. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not disagreeing with you. But like, that's 6.5 times less effective than removing images. So you're looking at the lowest common denominator and that's what you're doing to eliminate your bias? There's a better way. Check this out. This is a gross fact. This is a gross fact from a study. Guys, I highly encourage you to go to that link at the bottom right. Again, I may or may not be illegally sharing a journal article I paid for. But this one right here, the effect of more and less attractive people is huge. So check this out, guys. If you look at people who are deemed less attractive on whatever scale they use, they explain all the math behind it. It's too nerdy for me to get into on this. The people on the telephone call did look at exponentially better than the ones who did face-to-face. Whereas the more attractive candidates, is marginally different. Now be mindful, guys, the telephone still went better than face-to-face, right? But look at the gap when you're talking about just what people determine to be attractive. That's messed up. This is messed up. If this doesn't get you like fired up and pissed off, like I don't know what to tell you. This is a messed up chart to look at and know that this was done scientifically. So let's go over blind hired. This is traditional blind hiring. This is what, as of, 6 hours ago, I thought blind hiring was. It's not. So, right, this is, we can't say anything. Let's hire something. This reminds me of an SNL skit. I'm sure it probably was at some point. But if you look online, here's what most people define as blind hiring, is that reducing the bias by removing critical information from documentation or from online presences to make sure that you're assessing a candidate based on their skills. If anybody's got a different definition of blind hiring, by all means, throw it my way. Happy to discuss. Happy to pull you on stage. But this comes back to the same point I just made. You're removing words. You're not removing what they're going to see, right? There's inherent issues with this idea of blind hiring, which is what we'll get into. But as a nation who is traditionally biased, is it a reality? So that's we're going to get into that too, MGB. So here's the deal, though. So again, here's an article on the bottom left as the link. But what you're going to see here is the number one thing that's brought up if you look of shortcomings or flaws or whatever it is of blind hiring, this is it. It's that, yeah, fine. Maybe up front that's the case, but then they're going to visit face to face with the hiring manager, and there's no way to mask their gender or ethnicity or whatever it is. Yeah, that's totally right. That's because blind hiring 1.0 is a cheap cop-out so that we can feel like we're doing a really good job. We're not. This is the same thing. This is going to ruffle people's feathers, but like, welcome to my existence. This is the same thing as people who felt like they really did their part in the social movement last year by changing their profile picture to a black square. I'm doing my part. No, you're not. You're changing your profile picture to a black square. Cool. You're standing in solidarity of people who I believe definitely need people standing in solidarity of and being supportful of, but like, you didn't do shit. You changed your profile photo, right? Do something. Actually affect change. And how are we going to do that? Blind hiring 2.0. This is going to sound super radical. Ready? Literally take away any interview step that involves you seeing the candidate. Ooh, I love that, Faith. I'm stealing that from you. Thank you. Literally remove every stage. No face-to-face, no video interview at all. Not like in the beginning, not as the first round, period. Don't do one. Do not do a face-to-face or visual interview. And right now, I imagine half the people in here are going, what the hell? How the hell are you going to do that? I have to see who I'm about to hire. I'm going to challenge that thought, and I encourage you to put your challenges into the chat so we can discuss them. So this can be a discussion and a learning opportunity versus a lecture. So where did this idea come from for me? My wife. But the second place that it came from was reading about the blind hiring and realizing that the idea of like, if you've ever seen The Voice, they didn't create that shit, right? The New York Philharmonic did when they got sued forever ago. And they actually started blind hiring, like not looking at all at the performer, just listening to their quality of music. And check out the percentage jump there, right? And this was in like the 70s or 60s, excuse me. Like, that's a huge jump done by not seeing the person you're, Mass Singer, hell yes. It showed me nothing without Dr. Kim, but like, Dr. Ken's the man. Whatever. So guys, this is actually from another article, again, different article, bottom left. You can click it when you get the slides. There are studies that they share in this that show that when you eliminate any visual component, candidates truly will exceed the expectations when it comes to things like skill, experience, competence, etc. So the flaws. Are there flaws of blind hiring? Yeah, obviously there's flaws of blind hiring. However, Tanya, agency recruiters are totally trained to bypass candidates who don't have a profile picture. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, that's like not even playfully racist. That's just blatantly racist. I like it, or sexist or ageist or whatever ist you want to play with. But like, WTF, right? So, and we'll get into some of those pushbacks in a little bit. So, hindering diversity. This was one of the flaws that people talked about because companies who look to actively hire diverse candidates won't be able to identify them anymore, right? If we remove all data from the resume and the social site and everything, I'm actually not a huge proponent of that piece. I think it can be okay to share some of that data in terms of the diversity hiring, particularly if you're making an effort to do so. The caveat to that is that same idea of like the law California's passing right now, or trying to pass, I don't know if they did already, around executive boards have to have a percentage of diversity. How's it going to feel to be the person who got promoted to an executive board because a company didn't want to get sued by the government? Like, that's shitty. So I get it. I get this point. I think at the end of the day, nothing's going to be perfect, but like, not a huge fan of this, like the hindering diversity factor, because like then I won't be able to search specifically for Hispanic, Black, blah blah, female, LGBTQ, etc. I think you could still do that while removing bias. If that's what you're looking for up front, you're not going to be biased to that as a recruiter. Now, when it's handed to the hiring manager, I think it should be removed. I agree with that. But as a recruiter, if you're searching for someone who's Latinx, like, don't make it impossible for me to find out if they're Latinx or not, right? Like, however, hiring managers shouldn't necessarily need to know that. I don't see the benefit of them doing that because they're not the ones with the diversity initiatives. We're the recruiters. Second, hiring for culture fit. And this is the exact one I just brought up, but about culture fit, which is depending on how much data you hide on the resume, there could be a negative impact for or against the culture fit of the organization. Again, are we taking off what they enjoy doing? Are we taking off their personal summary and their objective at the top? Are we eliminating those things? The clubs that they were in college? Are we eliminating places where people could make meaningful connections? Or are we concerned that any piece of data that could possibly identify them as any type of human being other than a robot who does a job could be used as bias? There's a case for both sides. I personally, again, believe things that make you human. Things that make you a defined human in a box, eliminate those. What about the numbnuts who say, find me a diverse candidate? I think that's fine, MGB. I think that's totally fine. But here's the deal. As a recruiter, I want to know if I'm looking at a Latinx candidate, a Black candidate, a female, someone more seasoned in their career. I want to know that because I want to know that I'm doing my part to help diversify the organization. But that doesn't mean then that any of the other data should pass through to the hiring manager. Doran, is there a concern with being able to verify applicant identity by not seeing the applicant at some point before the hire? There are definitely ways around that. And to be fair, social media exists. So like, you should probably be able to see that person at some point on social media. If they have somebody completely do their whole interview for them, first off, that's awesome. Second, you're going to know day one when you hear their voice and you're like, you're not the same person. No, Doran, I don't think the idea is not to look at that up front as a recruiter. As a hiring manager, correct. But again, as a recruiter, if you know you're looking for a diversity candidate, then look for a diversity candidate. If you are not looking for a diversity candidate, then I'm with you. Then forget it. Do not look at profile pictures and names. Right? Because that makes sense. If you're not looking for diversity, don't bias. If you are looking specifically for a diversity candidate, let's call a spade a spade. You're biasing. I think you're biasing for a good reason, but you're biasing. So like, let's just call a spade and bias for it. Don't let your hiring manager bias. What if the candidate declines to self-identify? Brian, so this is actually one of the issues we face with LGBTQ and neurodiversity hiring, is if they don't identify as neurodiverse or LGBTQ, you can assume, but that is pretty shitty. By the way, don't do that. And so the what do you do when they don't self-identify? Well, I can pretty much tell on your social sites if you're Black or Latinx. That's, or a female or a male for the most part, particularly based on pronouns, right? So I think that you bring up a valid point about that piece, but people are scared about being discriminated against, right? Yeah, Mark, you're totally right about that. And there has to be really strong policies about hiring managers doing that. The other piece, however, could be sharing first name, sharing a company, and not sharing any of their other information when you share it, or find a different way. Get away from the resume, right? Can you have enough trust with your hiring manager that you're able to set up the interview and give them your notes? Wouldn't that be friggin' awesome? Or as a crazy concept, use something like Honeit. Honeit is a great tool to support this initiative. You're removing as much bias as humanly possible when you're using that tool. The last one was the anonymizing resumes actually hurts diversity. Guys, this is crazy. I want you to actually take a second and read that statistic. Actually hurts. Anonymizing resumes like names hurts people, because using a male name where you'd think, oh, well, a male will have a better chance of getting the job. No, statistically, not actually. Study done on that exact thing. So, That is what we like to do. The hiring manager will make the decision, but the recruiters will generally determine who should be interviewed. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly how I feel about that. So here's the common pushback that I've gotten when I've brought this up to people so far. Number one, well, the most important thing is how they present themselves, right? I've heard this quote like 2 or 3 times. Guys, the quote's by David Copperfield, who's a magician. A magician's main goal is to fool you. So, presentation is not most important. If right now you're thinking, well, what if they don't present well? What does that mean? What does it actually mean? I'm asking. But presentation, right. So yeah. Timothy, I completely understand. Presentation is their weakness. But what do we mean when we say presentation? Say their ability to stand up in front of a group of people, the way that they dress, are they properly groomed? Do they sit up tall? Mark, yeah, right, unattractive. Ultimately, guys, that's what any of this means. Yeah, Faith, actually, I'm going to bring up the idea for sales in a second here. So, and we can talk about that because most people right now say, well, what if it's a client-facing role? Who gives a shit? If you're hiring someone who has experience doing this already, they have to present at least well enough that they've done the job already. So who gives a shit? The only thing that matters is how they communicate. That's really it. How much of the job that we're doing these days is actually face-to-face shaking hands? And how much of presentation can't be an opportunity for growth? Somebody shows up and has a mustard stain on their shirt and their hair is all fucked up. Like, I would use that as a chance to be like, hey, listen, I don't care. I don't, legitimately. I'm wearing gym shorts right now and slippers. I don't care. But hey, when you're presenting to a client, let's make sure we really focus on this and this. We want them to have a certain impression, first impression that it gives off. And right or wrong, it's the nature of our business. And so having that conversation, while it can be tough, is a great learning opportunity. But presentation is not a thing that should hinder anybody from getting a job. Yeah. And I mean, so Preeti, I actually mean like the presentation, like the way someone looks and appears and carries themselves. Yeah, Faith, like how fucked up is that? Right? If that's the reason, like, couldn't you have just said like, hey, in the future, just so you know, if you're in like a formal setting, here's the proper way to do that. I just don't want people to, have any negative, blah, blah, blah. Like, I had to have this conversation with a buddy of mine's employee last week. He does medical device sales. And this young woman was, an attractive young woman. She was like 22 years old, just out of school. And she was showing up at like 6 a.m. to these surgeries, just completely dolled up, just full makeup, hair was perfect, just wearing heels and everything. And like, it actually wound up making some of the people a little uncomfortable. And better or worse, doesn't matter. But it was an opportunity to have a conversation about like, hey, what's the impression, the reputation that you want to have with your clients? And ask. No one's going to be like, I want to look like a schlep and an idiot, right? If they are, don't hire that person. What's the reputation you want to have? Great. Well, what do we need to do to achieve that reputation? So, great. Yeah. So, presentation. Here's the second one, and this is one of my favorites. Well, if I don't ever see somebody, how can I build relationships with them? Right? Because building relationships is really important. And here's the deal. I completely agree. Building relationships is really important. I don't understand the connection between those two things. Anybody? Can somebody explain this connection to me? Rachel, the reputation, it wasn't getting dressed up too much. It was an insane amount of makeup and styling their hair really intricately. The dress was not what you would call surgery center 6 a.m. medical device in the operating room appropriate. We'll go with that. And ultimately, I didn't care. My buddy didn't care at all. But the reputation she wanted to have in talking to her was, I want people to see me as an expert in what I do. And the bottom line is, right or wrong, that wasn't the impression she was giving off to her clients. Did she have to change? No, absolutely not. We didn't give a shit. She didn't keep wearing the same thing. I don't care. But I think it's important to bring it up because, like, hey, it's not having the effect that you want to have, right or wrong. It's just not the effect you want. So building relationships. This is so great. Can someone explain to me how building relationships and seeing the person is equivocal? Yeah. Yeah. MGB. It's not, man. And I hear this all the time. Yeah, Peter's an old school way of thinking. Check this out, guys. I did some research for you. I looked up best ways of building work or professional relationships. Here are 6 different sites who list the 5 to 8. You will when I send you the slides, Michael, for sure. Here they all have, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 ways of building relationships. Do you know that not a single one of them mentions looking someone in the eye, shaking their hand, or being face to face? 0 of them. So where does that come from? Why do we believe that we have to be face to face to build a relationship? It's just not true. The data is not there to support that belief. It's an old school way of thinking, and it's time that we break out of that. And here's my least favorite. I got called out on this pretty hard. MGB, you were here on this one. I got told I was living in a fantasy world and that this was a utopia that no companies are ever really going to do, right? That, oh, well, it's nice in theory, but it's not realistic. We need to see people in our interviews. No, it's not. It's not a fantasy world. Here's the deal with a fantasy world, and this is a definition. I get fired up about this because it was a very uncomfortable situation where I got bullied around in a clubhouse room. Guys, it's not a fucking fantasy. A fantasy is a thing that doesn't exist and doesn't happen. So ready? Have you ever been hired or hired someone without a video or face-to-face interview? Well, 266 people and 42% of them said yes. So don't tell me it's a fantasy world, it's utopian, that people aren't doing this. People are doing this. If the way you're thinking is that it's a fantasy and it's utopia, you're part of the problem. So how do we do this? Yeah, I get fired up about this. That is frustrating as shit to hear people poo-poo something that we should be doing as a society socially because they don't think other people are doing it. Get out of your boat. Start creating a better future. Don't try to wait for somebody else to do it and build off of what they're doing. So number 1, stop visual interviews. Just stop it. Just stop doing them. No more video interview. No more face-to-face. There's no need. Yeah, Timothy, that's a great point. I have a story about that. Number 2, use the same questions in every interview. Use the same questions in every interview. That's really important that we're asking the same exact questions. And I had to wear long sleeves at Starbucks in the middle of espresso rush because somehow tattoos were against dress code. I read a funny meme recently, Rachel, that said people who have a lot of tattoos, for me, are typically way more appealing for a job because it means that they can sit in one place under immense amounts of pain doing nothing for hours, in which case probably going to fit in the corporate world fairly well. Here's the big one, guys. Number 4. This is a big one. Culture add versus a culture fit rubric. We have these rubrics around, like, oh, we asked a skills question, they said this. We asked this behavioral based questions, they said this. Do you have one assessing both cultural fit and cultural add? That chart I showed you earlier is a great chart to use for that. Is this somebody who's going to add to the team right now, can jump in and get going? Or is this someone who in the long term is going to build us up over time? Is this someone who's going to change the corporate culture or someone who's going to add, expand the current corporate culture, right? Yeah, Rachel, 100% sure can. That is a ridiculous amount of time to spend in a salon. I spent 4 hours once trying to get my hair silver and want to lose my mind. So add versus fit. Do we have a rubric to actually grade the difference between those two? 5th, if you want to really know who somebody is, research who they actually are in real life. I promise you that I can sit in an interview with a suit on, not swear, and not voice my opinion. I can do that. I'm a great interviewer. I promise you. I'm a great interviewer, super professional. That's not who I am. Why don't you go check out some of my posts on LinkedIn or Facebook? Why don't you go check some of the articles I wrote? You'll get a real good idea of who I actually am. If that's important to you, find out that way. Who cares about the pictures? Who cares about how I present in a suit or, the fluffy words I say? What am I putting out there? What am I putting out in the world? Preeti, how do we change that? Right in front of us. Present the data. Present the data to the hiring managers, showing them that it is only a deterrent to video interview someone. It's only a deterrent. There are zero value adds when video interviewing a person outside of the fact that you feel comfortable because they are attractive in some way. Attractive doesn't have to mean good looking. Attractive can mean they carry themselves well. Attractive can mean they dress well. Attractive can mean whatever you want. But it just shows that they're attractive. It doesn't add any value to the interview process. There's data. There's tons of data in this presentation. And then the last one is get creative. Guys, get creative about how you're interviewing. Here's a crazy thought. Ready for this? Why not use Clubhouse? You want a crazy interview where you can really get to the bottom of learning who someone is and how they're going to fit? Do this exact step. You start a room up and have the candidate bring 3 to 5 friends or colleagues. Then invite your team and whoever else from the company, and then just have a dialogue about something, anything. And let the dialogue go for 30 to 60 minutes. See how people communicate with each other. See how the people that candidate brought to the table communicate. Because if they brought them to the table, they probably either communicate similarly or comparably to one another. So why not do something like this? This is a great way. You want to really understand someone, then understand them. Because here's the deal. For those of you who are saying this isn't possible, is this, Rachel, it's not open invite, but I have tons of invites if you need one. So this was one of the last points I wanted to make. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are not being biased. We can take the easy way out and put the black square up on our Facebook profile by eliminating the names and the schools from a resume. Or we can actually remove all of the visual bias that comes and allow people to be gauged by the very merits by which they'll be judged from within the job. And for those of you who are wondering, is that really possible? This is my wife. She's a principal at Mercer, a Fortune 500 company, who never, ever saw her boss or her team before she got hired. As a principal in sales, never saw a single human who worked at the company. Real story. It's what inspired this. So do you guys have any questions for me? The purpose of a chief culture officer, I believe, Brian, is to analyze the culture, assess the direction the company culture needs to take to align with the business values and mission, and then understand the steps needed to take to move the culture in alignment with those missions and values. Thanks, Preeti. Yeah, Alexandra, boom, right there. Awesome. Awesome. Right? You work, I think, with Jim D'Amico. He's no slouch. You know? It's possible, guys. Yeah, Mike, be the change, man. Let's do this. Let's do this. So that's all I've got. I appreciate you guys listening and giving me the time here today. The proxy interview problem. You mean if someone's going to have another person do all of their phone screens? Peter, is that what? I mean, you wouldn't, I guess, when you hire them and their voice completely isn't the same when you're talking to them, you'll know when you fire them. Like, I don't see that being a likely scenario of happening. You'd know pretty quick when you brought them on how that was going to break down. Also, if you want to be like really tricky and fun about it, you can ask questions that only that person would know based on what you know from their resume and stuff like that. Thanks, Rachel. Thank you all. I really appreciate that a lot. Yeah, Anne. All video calls. What up? I love that. Can I get this data from you to use to coach the hiring manager? Yeah, Preeti, I can share all of the slides. If anybody wants them, just shoot me over an email. Email or LinkedIn or Facebook. Twitter's my least used, but whatever. Awesome, y'all. I think there's another session probably starting. I told you I was going to go over. I apologize. Kind of apologize. Reach out, guys. I want to further this conversation. I want this to be a focus for this year. So please and thank you. I really appreciate y'all coming. Hope you have a really blessed rest of your day.